Hello, everyone. Megan here from Romance by the Book with the lovely Marielle.
Hello.
And this is the end of June. We read I Think They Love You by Julian Winters. It was so good.
It was a lot of fun. We're starting off at this last third of the book,
Yep,
and
chapter 16.
we left on a kind of an awkward,
Yes, so we left
spot.
where they had finally slept together again. But right after Denz comes, he's like, "Oh, I need to go pee," and he just like dips off to the bathroom. So we come back, he comes out of the bathroom, and Braylon is laying on the bed, and he realizes that he didn't come. And he's like, oh, hell no. Like, we're not doing this, right? So
Yeah.
they go again.
He also realizes that it's like not great that he like basically he took care of himself and then was
Like, he
like,
got
see
so
ya.
lost in what he was doing that he didn't even realize that, yeah, the
Well,
Braille
and then
didn't
like
come.
he left and like it just left him there. Like he was like not
Yes.
a cuddle, not a nothing. He
No.
was just like,
And
bye-bye.
he
Good.
sees that he's still hard and he's like, oh my God, you didn't come. And Braylon's like, it's no big deal. And he's like, oh, hell no. It is a big deal. Like, we're fixing this right now. So they go again and it's hot. And still very emotional. Like, it obviously, these two people really cared about each other in the past. They clearly still do. And it's very emotional. So in the
I like
morning,
sex scenes are like that too. Like they're
yeah,
not just like I mean I am not trying to like minimize the like hotness of it,
yeah,
but for me, I find it much like I find that I enjoy those scenes much more when there's like an emotional impact or
hmm,
there's like something it's doing something else in the story. And I felt like
yeah,
this really like sold for me
yes.
the fact that they like these people like they love each other and they have a chemistry and they are like as much as Denz has enumerated all the ways none of this adds up to anything. It is nothing. It is fake.
So fake.
I saw. It is not.
Yes, exactly. So in the morning, Jens kind of watches Braylon sleep for a bit, and then he decides he's going to take a selfie, but without Braylon's face in it, of course. But Braylon kind of wakes up and is like, "What are you doing?" And they start talking shit to each other a little bit, like about his whole social media thing, which is actually really cute. And they kind of rearrange themselves, and Dens takes a picture that is like really a great picture.
Like they're laying side like on their sides
Yeah.
like the dog is. One of them like one like faces kind of
Yeah.
and he's like just right
And
sunlight,
Braylon's
like
face is like
morning
kind of
sun.
in his neck, so you can't see his face. And yeah, it ends up being like a really beautiful picture. And so
But
Dens
like
posts it,
clearly like it's like
bedtime snuggles.
if before they were being real subtle, this was like
Super
not.
not subtle. Yes, exactly. So Dens does post it, but of course he doesn't tag him or anything.
But he
And so
asked for permission too, which is
yeah,
interesting, which is good. Like they
yeah,
had spoken about this before, and Braylon didn't want to be like turned into like
right. He doesn't want his
a
face out
spotlight.
there or his name out there. Yeah.
So it's nice to see Jen's being very mindful of that.
Yes, for sure. So they're still cuddled up, and Dens is trying to convince himself that last night was, just one night only. They can't do anything this morning, like the time has passed, kind of thing. But they look at each other, and uh, Dens all of a sudden busts out with what was clearly on top of his mind, which is, "Do you think I can do it?" Meaning the CEO job. And Braylon says, "Do you?" And I don't think Dens really has an answer for that. He's not sure. That's why he's asking.
Yeah.
Um, but they both kind of talk each other up in this moment. Like they're like hype men for each other for a minute, which is really sweet. And they decide they're going to shower separately and have breakfast. But then he hears Braylon in the shower singing to the song they danced to last night, and it is like too fucking cute. And he just has to like run in there. So they
Yeah.
go and like make out in the shower, which is cute.
Not separately.
And so meanwhile, the family group chat is popping off again, as it always does.
Well, he did post that picture,
Yes.
but they have two things that they're like talking about and just kind of like, ooh, what's the name of 24 Carter is like in
Yeah.
the news again.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting because it's like business, but also them
But
being
also family tea. Yeah. So Denz is chatting with Jamie later, at a restaurant, and Jamie can tell that they had sex. He's like, clearly, you got laid last night. Like, put it on me, right? So, and Denz keeps obsessing over his checking his phone, like he's waiting to hear that Braylon got home or whatever. And Braylon does finally text another like ridiculous joke, like still in the same thing that they've been doing, but then also says, like I'm home safe, etc. And Jamie is like, OMG, stop with the grin. Like, I can tell that you're like cheesing all over the place. Like,
He's like, I can't.
and Denz, meanwhile, is like, it's fake, asshole. And Jamie's like, okay. Of course, totally fake. And
He gets so because he's like, I can't. You guys, it's cute. It's funny because he's like, you guys are too adorable, and I can't watch this.
yes,
So he takes the phone. There is a message on there that
yeah,
which is mentioned, and I kind of thought like, oh no, what message is he missing? But
yeah.
it's just it's just him like continuing the conversation, and Jamie's like, no thanks.
And so then we get another flashback to 5 years ago. They are at the Carter's New Year's Eve party, which is super extra as always. And so Denz and Bray and Cammy and Nick are all kind of upstairs, like looking over the balcony at everything that's going on in the party and kind of enjoying hanging out together away from the fray a little bit. And Braylon asks if Denz will be like his dad after graduation. And Denz says, and I quote, "Oh no, I don't want this," is what he said. That's what I wrote in my notes. So, and then Cammy is frazzled and threatening to quit working there, as she's already working as an event planner at this point because she's several years older
She's
than
older.
Denz. And so Bray kind of takes her downstairs to dance and like get her mind off of things. And Denz is watching them and realizing that Bray fits right into his life in between the self that he is when he's in Athens and he's free to really be himself and the self that he feels like he has to be when he's with his family. And Bray fits with both of them, and he didn't think that he would ever have that.
Yeah, it was interesting. I thought the scene was really it, like did a lot because it you really see how important it was to Duns for Braylon to like integrate, and he does so
Yes.
well. But then also like during the party scene before, Braylon had been dancing with Cammy, and it was like, oh man, it's like, and so we get to see like
It's like a
in
callback.
both
Yeah,
things. It was kind of cool, and
it
I
was
really
cool.
apprecited that he had a relationship with everybody. It wasn't just like so it
Just
hurt
like on the
everyone.
periphery. Yeah.
Yeah,
So Denz and Eric are working on the retirement party details, and Denz is in the zone. He's calm. Everything this week is going off without a hitch, right? Texts from Bray are helping, like he's, still getting his daily jokes and everything. And on the way out one day, he overhears the aunties talking again about how dad still isn't sold on either of them as CEO yet, and that one of them better step it up, or like they might end up losing this job to some outsider, right? And so he's like not thrilled about that. And then Cammy comes to ask if he can babysit Micah, her son, on Thursday so that she can have some actual quality time with her secret boyfriend, who, of course, Denz takes every opportunity to like tease her about, but he also is seeing that she is making it a priority, which none of them have ever really done before with any of their
yeah.
like relationships.
He seems really proud of his sister and like happy for her that she's happy. Like hey, there's a
Yeah.
couple times when he mentioned that like it's clear that she is in a really good place
Yeah.
with this relationship, and so he already has plans
Well,
with Braylon.
Braylon
He
had just
does.
begged him to come to a work thing that he didn't really want to go to. And so he was like, what if?
What if instead of going, I give you a reason not to go?
Yeah, you can play hooky and come babysit with me. So, Denz and Braylon and Micah are in Denz's kitchen making the sandwich. It's all very cute and domestic and sweet. And even when Denz still can't do the flip and ends up throwing his sandwich on the floor, like it's very cute. And
It
so,
is.
sorry, go ahead.
Well, and Micah keeps like, is it okay if I don't put bacon, but I do put more cheese and I do? So he's like
Yeah.
messing up the ratios, and Den's is like, whatever you want. And poor Braylon's back there like, ugh.
Well, I think
But
actually Denz is the one who's like, I don't think that's too much cheese, buddy. And Braylon's like, oh, it's fine. And then he's like, but if you put that much cheese, then this might happen. You know what I mean? Like trying to sort of like make him think it's his own idea to take some of it out, which is really cute. Uh,
yeah, they're
and-
adorable together, and it's fun to see. I think when his like baby sister, like he had such a good like little bond when they were little, when he was a baby. It
yeah,
was interesting to see him now with like an older version, and
right.
this
A
kid
6-year-old kid.
is
Yeah.
well, and the kid's shy and like doesn't take to people very easily, and
Hmm.
so the fact that he still does take to Braylon
Yeah.
really
It's
well
really
right
sweet.
away is really sweet.
And so after Micah gets picked up, Braylon says he should get home to wash his shirt. He spilled like red juice on it when they were, hanging out with Micah. And Denz is like, you can wash it here. And Braylon's like, you're seem like you're trying to say something, but you're not actually saying a thing. So what are you trying to say? And Denz is like, I would like to give you a tour of my bedroom, basically, and I would like for you to see my bed. And so they do. And so then he meets Braylon for lunch later in the week amongst all this party planning. And Braylon says the office is looking forward to this social media tutorial thing that he has set up for Dens to give them. And they're kind of holding hands on the table and they're eating and they're talking.
I guess that
But
we should like we talked about this in the last recap because it came up in the last recap. So this is a thing that's been like on the books for a while.
yeah,
They the idea came up like
that's what led to
actually
the first
early
video
on,
chat.
and then in our last recap they like actually set a date and did, but it's been so
Yeah.
this is a thing that is
Everyone's been knowing about for a while. Yeah. And so as they're talking, the idea of each other's dating prospects when this is all over kind of comes up, and neither of them, like, I think Braylon mentions it first, and Denz is kind of like, ugh, I don't want to talk about this. But then he's trying to play cool, so then he's talking about, Braylon's prospects, and it's not great, and they're both kind of
no.
uncomfortable. And then Denz asks
See that
Braylon,
like Denz is trying so hard to like tell himself that this is not permanent,
yeah,
that he brings up like, well, there's like, that there's an end date. But
yeah,
then when the conversation turns to that, he's like, ew. And I'm like,
I
but
don't
why?
actually want to talk about this. Yeah. And Denz asks Braylon how he ended up at his job to try to like change the subject. And so Braylon says he saw an interview with Nora, the CEO of the company, almost right after his dad's funeral. And he basically never went back to London. He emailed her the next week to get a job interview, and like that was it.
Yeah.
And he said it was because of Denz. And Denz is like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "Well, you know, we need space in the world for these kids and to to be happy and free and comforted and supported like we had, but plenty of other people don't have that. And so I wanted to do that for them."
He said that when he first met Denz was so himself
Yeah.
and so comfortable being himself. And Denz is like, "Mm." But also,
Yeah.
um, but so it was like it's interesting to, I guess, see yourself through someone else's eyes. But he
Yeah.
was like, I wanted other people to have that opportunity. Um, Braylon didn't come out until after he met Denz.
Yeah.
So like they met at a party, there was chemistry, but then
It was
but
like a
he
couple
hadn't
months
come out
later
yet,
before they,
came
yeah.
out later. And then like they became a couple after that.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see that like maybe Den's even influenced Braylon in a way to be like, it's okay to be who you are.
Right.
But he never really knew that until this
Yeah.
conversation. So
Which is really
it was
sweet.
kind of sweet.
It
Yeah.
was. And then Braylon says, he drops the bombshell. He says, I can't date here anyway. If I get this promotion, I'll be in LA. And Denz is like, what the fuck?
You
Like, again, you're gonna leave again? Like, are you serious? But he's trying not to make a big deal out of it because clearly Braylon doesn't think it's a big deal. So he's just like buttoning it up. And in his mind, he's like, okay, so definitely none of this is real. The kisses, the sex, the support, none of it's leading anywhere. Like he always knew he was probably gonna be leaving
He
and he just
feels like
dropped
the
it on me.
like the floor has come up from under him. Like it's really sad. I was so
It
sad.
is.
But he doesn't say anything
Nope,
because
I didn't say anything.
why? Why do we try to be cool when We should just say
Yeah.
the things. But
I
yeah,
know.
he
So then we go into another flashback 5 years ago at lunch with Bray and his dad. Emmanuel, the dad, asks about Denz's future plans and all the opportunities he must have coming out of college. And Denz insists that he's going to stay in Atlanta where his family is. And the dad is like, you should consider all your options. Like, you never know where you might want to end up, kind of thing. And
he's kind of like, I guess in hindsight, and because we are experiencing this in hindsight,
yeah,
it feels like Emmanuel is kind of testing the waters and being like,
would you be
so
willing to leave?
would you consider
Yeah,
doing something different than what the plan has always been?
yeah.
And Den's kind of like, well, I mean, why
Why
would
would
I?
I?
'Cause I love my family and
Yeah.
like,
Well, and he even says, like, I don't think Bray's gonna leave either. Like, you're here. And Emmanuel, who, I think it said he's a first generation American. So, like, his parents left and went across the world for opportunity. And so, like, the idea of his son doing that is, like, not that big of a deal to him. Like, he would love for that to happen. Like, he doesn't expect Braylon to stay where he is.
yeah.
And obviously, Denz did not have that experience. So, um, back in present day, Denz is down in Jaeger bombs and whining to Jamie about Bray moving to California. And
He is like, it's happening again. And then Jamie is like, you mean like the way it was fake and you said it was anyway,
well, and Jamie's like,
Jamie,
"So you're moving too?" And he's like, "What? No. Why would I?" And he's like, "Why wouldn't you?" And he's like, "He didn't ask me to." And he didn't give me enough time to decide the last time he did ask me to. And Bray, and then you kind of get from Denz's point of view, like Bray did talk about it for months, kind of like hinting around because Denz still hadn't answered. Um, and finally, 10 days before graduation, Bray announced he talked to his dad. He can't wait around for his future because somebody else isn't sure about theirs. And so he's decided he's going to London alone. And that was it.
yeah. So just
And
like took the decision out of his, like he
yes.
made it so he didn't have to decide because he's
Right.
like, well, clearly you can't decide. And
Well,
my
and
decision,
Jamie kind of says in this moment, like maybe he didn't ask because he made such a big mistake last time, and now he doesn't know how to even like broach the topic.
yeah.
And of course, Denz is like, "You're supposed to be my best friend, like don't take up for him," kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he's like, "I'm just trying to tell you the truth."
Friendly conversation. You need to know if your friend
Yeah.
wants support or if they want answers. Because
Right.
in this
Well, and
case,
Jamie says in this moment, like, you're not even admitting you still love him. Like, how do you expect him to admit he wants you to come with him to California? You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, this is all supposed to be fake. And so, but also after all this time, are you really not even going to try? Like, what are we doing?
yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
And so
Like
Den's
by this, but then you're going to turn around and act like it means nothing, which
right.
is
Well, and then of course he plays it off like, well, the CEO job, like, I'm going for that. So, like, it doesn't matter anyway, kind of thing. And
right.
Jamie's like, this
You
is
don't.
why can't both things be important? Like, one thing is not more important than the other? So it's an interesting conversation. And I think it does finally put some words into Denz's brain about what's happening that he wasn't willing to really like face before. That's what best friends are for. So the next morning, he wakes up late, hungover, to a phone call from his dad that the retirement party venue has flooded.
He
Disaster.
he was supposed to be somewhere.
They're probably like already setting up because it's the next day. The party is the day after
No, right.
the
But I'm
day.
saying
Yeah.
he wakes up and he's like, I was supposed to be somewhere. Like he's a little bit disoriented. He knows it's later than it should be.
Yeah. It's like after 10 in
And
the morning.
phone rings and his dad is like, get over here.
Yes. This place is flooded. It's a disaster. So
Oh,
Dens rushes off.
this is like, why don't you call Cammy? And he says she is unavailable.
Yep. She's
she
sending
sent
Jordan.
she sent someone, but she's unavailable
Yeah.
and someone needs to come.
Yeah.
And so
And he
he
says to him specifically, too, like, this is what a CEO does. You drop everything when there's an emergency and you come deal with it. Like, do you want this job or not, basically? And so Denz is like, fuck, okay. So he gets up, he goes, he's rushing around all day, fixing things, replanning things,
because it
everything.
really is a big problem. Like
Yes.
there's a flood, the space that they were going to use is unavailable, and the event is tomorrow. So it's not like they could re
Yeah. They have to
like
figure it out quickly. And compromise on some things that they maybe
Well,
wouldn't have
if they
liked to.
can't like send out new invitations or tell people like, they could not set up in a completely different space at this point because the thing's tomorrow.
Yeah,
And interestingly, though, as it's going on, like there's stuff that he's like, oh, I need to do this. And his dad took care of some of those things.
right.
Then other people, like it
Jordan was
wasn't,
there. Cammy had sent Jordan, so he was doing stuff too.
and some of the things that Denz was like, oh, I need to, people had already
Yeah.
kind of taken
And
care of.
meanwhile, he's ignoring his phone all day because he's very busy, truly. And Cammy
Shows up.
doesn't show up till everything's done, basically. And he's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, nice of you to show up now," you know? And she's like, I my kid was
Have
sick.
it.
I had to pick him up from school. I didn't have anybody to watch him. Mom's on a college trip with younger sister. Like, sorry, sorry, not sorry. Basically, like I had other priorities. I sent somebody in my place. Like I did the best I could.
Yeah.
And so she lets him have it. And then she lets him have it personally. She's like, "You're always late. You run from problems or you lie. You forget things all the time. You're doing this for them. You're not doing it for you. So like don't talk to me about shit, basically, you know?"
Yeah.
And and then he
It,
calls her on being scared about her relationship, like being scared
yeah.
to share that with the family. So like they both have points, but they're
But
really,
they're hitting below the belt, both
yes,
of them. And and Cammy kind of starts that. I will say for Denz's point of view, like the fact that his sister had a kid meant that she said like, oh, whoops, can't do it because kid, and that's her trump card, right?
right.
But he did not get like he got fully like railroaded into going, and
Yes.
no excuse was going to be good enough because
Right.
this is what a CEO does.
Yes.
And he took it, like
Yeah.
he took it on,
Yeah.
but it's like I can see why he would be like,
Right.
oh my,
Pissed that it's like unfair. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
And then their dad, of course, comes by and is like, "Are you guys really arguing in public? Like, get out of here." Right. And so,
like
as
at the
Denz is
venue.
finally like grabbing his phone out of his pocket for the first time all day, a text comes in from Braylon and it says, "I can't believe you didn't show up." And he's like,
Has like 18 missed calls and like a bunch of texts. And the texts start out with like, oh, everyone's so excited, can't wait to see you. And then devolve
"Devolve."
into,
Yes,
I can't
absolutely.
believe you
And
didn't
he's
even.
like, "Oh my God, he's 2 hours late for this session he was supposed to hold. He feels horrible." It was a genuine emergency what he was dealing with, but like he absolutely should not have ignored his phone all day. Like that is not how you do things, right?
Well, I mean, also the thing is, he forgot. Like he in his head was like, I'm missing something all day long.
Yes.
And there were several times where he was like, wait, am I missing this? And someone would be like, no, I already took care of that. But
Yes.
it was like what he was missing was a commitment that he had prior to all this
Yes.
that was super important
Yes.
to
And if he had
Braylon. And
bothered to look at his phone this morning, he could have canceled it and everything would have been fine. And instead,
yeah.
it's now this
Well, yeah, that's right. Like he could have called and said, I am so sorry. Here's a thing that happened. But
emergency.
there was like
Yeah.
absolutely no communication. And
It's horrible. Like in the my
it's
gut just like dropped in that moment. I was like, "Oh no." So he runs out to his car because Braylon's not picking up the phone now. So Denz runs out to his car. He goes to the office. Braylon's coworker, Wit, is pissed. She's like, "I missed dinner with my wife for this. Like, fix what you did to him because all he ever wants is good things and he never asks for anything and you fucked up, you know?" And so,
also it's like they were meeting after hours. So like everybody stayed
yes,
late
yes,
and waited late. And
yes.
then there was not even a call, not even
No,
like he
nothing.
just
Yes, it
didn't.
was horrible.
It's yeah.
So Braylon walks over and he's clearly pissed. And Denz doesn't even know what to say. And what comes out of his mouth is, "I didn't mean to miss this," which is true, but like he also could have avoided it and didn't. Like he screwed up. And so Braylon's like, "It's fine." And
And in
then,
his head, and I guess because we get his point of view, like in his head,
yeah,
he's like, I want to say I'm sorry. That doesn't feel like enough. I don't know. Like he is kind of freaking
he is
out because he
struggling. Oh,
knows
yeah.
there's nothing he can say that's going to really make this better.
Well, and what he does
And what
choose to
he does
say,
say is,
honestly, was kind of minimizing. Like, he's like, well, it's not like this was the big party that your promotion hinges on, right? Like, we can just reschedule this. No biggie, right? And Braylon's like, no, like, these people have families, they have lives, they stayed late. You embarrassed me. Like, you just didn't even
he
show up.
Den says this was a one-off and we can just reschedule it. He's like, it's a one-off for you, but these people like rearranged their lives so they could fit this in.
Yes. Even though most of
And
them probably don't even think it's important. Like, it was my idea, and you embarrassed me. And then Denz drops into like defense mode, like, oh, well, you're leaving again anyway, so who cares, kind of thing. And and then he says, but I wish I would have had the guts back then to tell you when you asked me about London that I wasn't sure because I was afraid you'd figure out I wasn't good enough for you. Like, and I didn't want that to happen. And it like paralyzed me with indecision. You know what I mean?
well, it was a big ask because he hadn't gone somewhere like that on his like by himself. He didn't want to be out like in the ether and then
Yeah.
have Braylon be like, "Ooh,
After all, never mind, right? Well, and he said, but I didn't get a chance to even do that. You let your dad take that from us, basically.
yeah."
And he's like, I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry for what happened since we ran back into each other, or I'm not sorry for wishing that you felt differently about what was going on between us. And um and after that, he can tell Braylon doesn't really know what to say or doesn't have anything to say. And so he just like switches to official business. He's like, okay, the party's planned. I'm done here, basically. Like everything's ready. Um,
He's like, "You don't really need me for the party, so I guess this can be for
this can be
us."
it. Yeah. And he says, but he does say to him, this is your home, Braylon. You fit here better than I ever did. And then he leaves. So the retirement party is the next day, obviously, because this all happened and was such an emergency because the party was the next day. So at the party, Denz is pretty subdued. Like he's obviously sad about the way that things went down. Also, he has no idea who his dad's going to pick, and he's freaking out about that. And he has a bit of a moment with Eric, um, and finally meeting his wife in person for the first time, who is very pregnant. And he realizes with twins, and he realizes that's why he pulled out of the CEO because he's like, he's about to have a family. He can't devote the time and energy that would be required. And so he didn't even, he was like, no, I'm out.
It was interesting because Dens was like, "What in the world? Like, how did I miss this?" And he was just like, "Well, we have not."
We don't hang out. Yeah. Like strictly work acquaintances, you know? So Denz goes over to the bar and he's talking to Jamie, who's tending bar, and he notices that Jamie and Jordan are like flirting. And he finally clicks in his head, like, oh, this is a thing happening here in front of me that I have like not been paying attention to. And as far as anybody knew, based on family group chats and previous history, Jordan is straight. So he was like, and I think that's a big part of the reason why he didn't catch on at first, because it wasn't even like that would have never even occurred to him. You know what I mean? He knows that Jamie is pan, but as far as he knew, his cousin was straight. So like that was like not computing for him. And
Well,
so,
as he's thinking about this now, he's like, "Well, like I, as the lone queer person in the family, he knows
yes,
that it would be kind of, that it would be a big kind of step, I guess, for
yeah,
his cousin maybe to come out, and so
yeah.
he tries to be kind of like, I guess I'm here if he needs me, but
Right. But
I'm
if
not
you don't want to
gonna
talk,
do
that's fine.
this.
Right. And he does say to Jamie, though, we'll talk later. Like, because that's his best friend and he's going to be hearing about it.
Yeah.
So later, his aunt Cheryl comes up to him and is talking about what a great job he did for the party. And she says something like, oh, I wasn't sure about you for the job, but like you proved me wrong. Your relationship with Bray has changed you. And as Denz is trying to think of something to say, Bray
This is like
hears.
the second or third time in this book that Dens is like, "Ooh, but
But
it's very
respect my
part of our
elders.
family that we need to be respectful, and I'm not gonna say the things." But this time, another voice says the
Yes.
thing.
And he's like, actually, you're wrong, Aunt Cheryl. Um, Bray or Denz always takes things in his life seriously, and he just needs people to stop doubting him. That's basically like what he says. And she's like she can't believe that that just happened. And so then they go dance. And Denz is like, I can't believe you're here. Like, I didn't think you were going to come. And Braylon says, I hated how yesterday ended. I don't want it to end again without me saying what I really want to say. And basically says, like, I got the promotion. Like, in 2 weeks, I'm going to be in LA. You're right about the last time I let my dad influence me, and that wasn't fair to you. Like, I'm sorry that that happened. But he's like, I already knew your decision before that happened because you are who you are here, and you would pick that over who we could be together somewhere else. And so I already knew you were going to say no, which is another part of the reason why I just like nipped it before you could, basically.
He
And yeah,
known
it's
you
rough.
whole, like not your whole life, but I've known you, and all the
Years.
time that I've known
Yeah.
you, you've like always like had your family and had your things, but I have always felt that you were also looking for your home.
Yeah.
And
Well, and he said,
but
I kept your sweatshirt because the big thing was because I uh needed a reminder that I was going to be okay, like no matter where I was, basically. And um and it helped me remember that I found my place once in Athens with you and that I could do it again. And I um I'm a mess too. Like none of us are perfect. But I'm better than good enough for your family. And like a lot of this has made me feel like that's not like you don't think that. You know what I mean? Like that I'm like not good enough to fit in with your family just the way I am. But you also are good enough without bending yourself into a pretzel to like fit what your family thinks you should be, you know?
yeah.
And it's a brutal discussion, but it's comforting too because Braylon really sees him in a way that nobody else in his life is clear enough to see that he's not the person that he acts like he is when he's with his family.
Well, and the thing is, it's not even, I don't know, from an outsider's perspective, it doesn't feel like Denz is trying to be a different person for his family,
Yeah.
but he doesn't want to let people down, and he wants to like live up to their expectations,
Mhm.
which means that he is taking on stuff that like now his sister, his, like there's a couple
Right.
people who have been like, do you really want
Do you
this?
actually even want this? Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, of course, but it's sometimes it's hard to like pick apart like what you want versus what
Yeah.
has been instilled in you as like this is the thing that you're gonna do
And
because
also for him, there's a lot of I want to be my dad, but that doesn't necessarily mean you want your dad's job. Like those two things don't have to be the same, like and he was never able to
like
like separate that.
yeah, you could admire somebody without like
Fully
making
emulating
their
them.
whole life and
Yeah.
there's like oh as we've watched him try to do the job
Yeah.
um it feels like he either like doesn't love it enough to like make it be like like the
Yeah.
kinds of mistakes that he makes and the things that he's like dropped the ball on it almost feels like well it's because he's trying to do it but not really
Yeah.
like it doesn't hold his attention fully so it's interesting it's a really interesting
Yes. And then we get to the part where I cried again because Braylon says to him, "You're wrong too. This isn't my home. All I see here are my parents' graves. Like I have no place here. I never have. Um, it just rips my heart out. All of this. Also, this is where we ended, and that was like the other most important thing in my life. You know what I mean at the time. And so he's like, I home is where you want to be, and I don't want to be here. Like I need to find my home." And I think you need to find your home too. Like, and Jens is like, no, it's here. And Braylon is like, of course it is. Like, and he's very disappointed by this. And Braylon says, promise you'll never forget. You're amazing. And then he leaves. Jens is super not okay. He goes and kind of like there's like a stairway. He kind of like goes under the stairs and he's like basically having a panic attack. And his mom finds him right before it's time
he's
for his dad's
like fully
announcement.
having a panic attack and
He's
his
like
mom has to
hyperventilating.
talk him through it
And
And
so she's like, I saw Braylon leave. He looked upset, and clearly you're upset, like, breathe. And so she kind of helps him, but then she has to go because his dad's about to make the announcement. So she's like, gonna go on stage. And she also lets it slip that Cammy had a panic attack earlier in the night. So she's like, if I had known both of you were gonna have panic attack, I would have just chained your dad to his desk and told him he couldn't retire. Like, this is crazy, right? And
I'm too
so
old for this. But it is interesting because she yeah, she is so she's a good mom. And she does kind of try to like tell him it's that it's gonna be fine.
yeah,
And you've gotta like, take your breaths and
right.
we're gonna get through this. Um, but he really like he held off on the speeches for 10 minutes so that he could talk to Braylon, and then that conversation like
Yeah.
tore him up.
And so now the announcement's happening, and so they have to go on stage. And his dad gives his speech about his retirement and everything, and he announces that the new CEO is Camila, his sister. And in the moment, Denz is like, I just want to not be here, right? Like, so he just kind of like that, like you said, that Homer Simpson, he just like backs off the stage, gets down. Cammy is going to have her speech, and so he's able to sort of like disappear without people really like noticing.
Yeah, he
And
listens to the beginning of it and then like
and then he
uses
like, yes,
the
leaves.
focus
And
being on
so
her.
he is in like the
And he's not
overflow
mad
room.
about it.
Yeah.
He's just like
I think he's kind of numb already because of what happened with Braylon. So this is like not
it's
even rating in comparison to like
well, it's
that.
like a blows after like it's such like back to back blows, and he
Yeah.
really worked hard for it. So I
Yeah.
think it's especially coming on the heels of him like messing up royally, like get like
Yeah.
sacrificing something that was important to take care of this. You know what I mean? Like
And
he,
then
I
he
think
didn't
it,
even get it. Yeah.
yeah.
And he goes off.
But he's like, I can't stay
He's a mess.
here.
He's a mess. And so he goes off. He goes into like the side room, like he's gonna leave, and he meets Siraj, Cammy's secret boyfriend, who is
He
there.
like
And
runs into a man and is
yeah,
like, who
who are
is
you? Yeah,
this?
I don't know you, and I know everybody here, kind of thing. And it's Cammy's secret boyfriend, who's apparently not going to be secret anymore. He's there for her big night. And then Cammy comes over, and Micah is like asleep in her arms, and they kind of leave as like a little family. And he kind of yells like "Congratulations!" like as an afterthought, like as they're leaving. And he
We
knows that
should mention that they have these like very silly pet names for each other. So like when she comes over, it's like, and he is like, what is
yes,
this? So
it's
they
like
do
fully
have
out
a
there
little
now.
like sibling banter in the midst of their like big feelings and
Well, and in
disappointment.
the midst of her being like, I really can't do this now. Like, we're gonna talk later. And so he stays to help clean up because his dad always told him, like, you're not more important than the guy who's cleaning up the tablecloths at the end. Like, you got to stay and help and thank people and like make people understand that you appreciate their work? And that's always been in his head. So he stays, he helps clean up. And then when he gets downstairs,
One of the guys, it's kind of funny because he's like, "Oh, hey, boss." I mean, Denz, and I was like, "Oh man,"
yeah, I know it's rough. So when he
but
gets downstairs, Nick and Jordan and Jamie and his mom are waiting for him, and he just like finally loses it. So he's
me too,
crying. I
me
know.
too,
Oh
Denz,
God, it was so,
because
so hard.
he did all the stuff, and it was like his parents were gone, the aunties were gone. It's just like him and the cleanup crew,
Yeah.
just like
Doing
breaking
the thing.
everything down.
Yeah.
Um, and he walks out and he's like, "Oh, I'm not alone. Like no matter what, I'm not alone." And I was like,
Yeah. It was rough city. Whew. So he spends a rainy weekend like wallowing, and he emails work that he's taking a mental health week, is what he calls it. And his dad replies back, and is like, yeah, that's fine. And then by Wednesday, he goes to the coffee place where he first ran into Bray again, and accidentally orders tea, or he says like "make what you want" kind of
he
thing to the
tells that,
girl,
yeah.
and it ends up being the tea that Bray always orders, so it's like the worst, right? And then his
But
dad,
he keeps drinking it.
he does,
Like he's like, "What is?" And then he's like, "Well,
oh, yep, wallowing
that's
some more, right? So then his dad shows up, and sits with him, and they really talk in probably what's the first time in a long
Ever.
time, maybe ever, yeah, about all of the things that are going on in Denz's life. And
Okay, so one thing, and you'll have to tell me if this like hit you, but I was like, what? Because he's like, I really wasn't sure if either you or your sister were ready for this job
yeah,
because I didn't want you to make the same mistakes I made.
yeah.
But
Well, that's one of the first things he
he,
says is like, "You're me."
but
Like
but
you,
but Cammy didn't come. And that's when I knew that she could do this job. And I was like, what? What? I was I was like,
she delegated, which I think is the thing that his dad could never do, which is why he was having problems in his marriage and why because it was like it could only be him, which wasn't true. He just decided that. You know what I mean? Like, and yeah, I think Den's struggling the way he did and then Cammy delegating and he was like, "Oh, like that's what I should have been doing this whole time." And meanwhile, Den's
yeah.
is just like him. He cares too much. He wants to be a part of all of it, and it's not healthy. And he's like, "I didn't want that for you." And like you
Like
would lose yourself in this job.
maybe you shouldn't have guilted him so
Yes,
strongly. But
absolutely.
anyway,
Well,
it
and he
was
did, and actually,
interesting.
Denz did say, like, then what are we? And he's like, you nominated you. I didn't nominate you. You know what I mean? Like, you didn't even let Auntie Eva nominate you when she tried to. Like, you did this. You know what I mean? Like, don't blame it on me, basically, which is true. And so, uh, he's like, when Bray came back, you were really happy. And like it took a while for me to forgive him. And Dins is like, yeah, no shit. Like that was obvious, right? And he's like, hey, he broke my kid's heart. Like, I don't have to be nice to him.
Yeah.
But he's like, and then Dens gets a wild hair because he's feeling guilty after his dad's telling him all these truths. And so he says, it was fake. And his dad's like, I know.
Yeah.
And he's like, what do you mean, you know? And he's like, it's over. And he's like, you love him though. That's not fake. Like your mom and I understood what was happening from the beginning, but we also watched what was happening between you two, and it was super not fake. And so,
He says to Dens that he when he is with Braylon, when Dens is with Braylon, the dad is like, I see my son. Like I see you being yourself when you're with him. I don't see that when you're working,
yeah,
trying to be CEO or doing this stuff. I don't see it. Like he kind of tells him all these other, like, I don't see it
yeah,
in other times. But when you're with him, I see you
yeah.
being yourself and feeling
It's really
comfortable in yourself. And I was
such a good
like,
conversation.
yeah.
And so then at that moment, Dens is like, okay, I'm taking a leave of absence. And his dad's like, I'm not CEO anymore, but and he like sends out an email and he's like, okay, done, right? And so then he's like, now answer your mom's calls because she's threatening to divorce me for retiring if you don't freaking call her back, right?
Which
And
is funny
so,
because he said he retired for his wife. Like he wanted to get like have time with her and
right, like their
actually.
youngest is going to go to college, so they're actually going to be alone again. And like it's important for him to like transition to being there.
And because basically he does not know, because Den said something to him about how he like was able to do it all, and he was like, "No, like I have no balance," and so he was like, he's got to retire
Yeah.
because
Because
he does
I
not
can't
know how to.
manage to balance. Yeah. And that's been the problem for however many years he's been doing it. But he does say to him, he's like, somebody
No,
asked to meet with you. And he hands him a card, and it's Nora's card, Braylon's boss. And he's like, maybe, maybe you want to talk to her, maybe it'll help. So, after a movie night with Jamie, Dins finds Bray's dirty shirt under his bed, the one with the red stain on it. And
that he never watched it.
all of a
Sure, all
sudden
the
they got distracted, okay? After all this time, like it's like a ping moment, like he knows what he needs to do. So he sends an email. It doesn't say to who. He goes into the office and he tells Cammy in person that he's quitting. And she's like, I mean, I kind of figured like you weren't going to want to work for me. You know what I mean? Like that wasn't like I didn't figure that was going to work out, right?
Which is
And
interesting because I don't think that it would have been a problem, except that he needs to figure himself out and figure out if he can salvage things with Brave.
well, and
So
I think if he had never tried for CEO, like if he was just an event planner and she became the boss, I don't think it would have been a problem either. I think it was because of the way he felt pitted against her and the idea that maybe this isn't for him, period, anyway, that he needs to just like be done.
Yeah, it was funny though because he is trying to confess his sins and be honest with all his family,
Yes.
and his sister also already knew
Oh
that
yeah,
it was
already
fake.
knew it was fake too. One, so he's like, how long do I have? And he's like, maybe a month. Like, I'll train Jordan to make sure he can like replace me, basically. And then she says, "What about Braylon?" And that's when, yeah, it comes out that she also knew it was fake. And he's like, apparently we suck at this. Like, who knew, right? So,
She
but she's like,
also
listen,
like she's also kind of like, oh well, we don't need like it, like we're fine. And he's
yeah,
like, I did things here, stuff, but like
right?
it's very it's I think it's
It's
really
clearly their
cute.
dynamic is coming back to normal. Yeah, which is good. But and she does say to him some real hard truths, which is like, listen, people change and things change and it's not bad. It's just different. Like you need to get over yourself, basically. Like,
Well, and he's kind of like, well, I like he kind of says stuff about how he wanted to like be her person, and he's like, well, so that's not negotiable. You don't have to be here to be like
yeah,
the person I rely on. That's
that
still
you're
gonna
my
happen.
brother.
And
Like
he's
that's not
like,
changing.
oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, and he's like it's too late. And she's like it's not too late. Like you, the king of rom-coms, you don't have any fucking ideas about how you might fix this? Like are you for real? And he's
It's
like,
hilarious. She's like, go home.
right. She's
The
like,
grocery
fine, I have
store
plans.
arriving soon, and I'm like, what?
And so
Anyway,
the plans come to fruition and end up with Denz going to Braylon's work event that he planned, dressed as Iron Man
it's the
with
wrong character.
wrong character with the sandwich that he finally made after 4 tries in hand. And so Jamie's kind of there with him, hyping him up, like, you can do this, go do it, kind of thing. And so Den starts walking over toward the tent. It's like an outdoor party. And Wit, that same coworker of Bray's who gave it to him last time, steps in front of him and he like falls down in the mud. So already the sandwich
The
is ruined,
flying.
his costume is ruined. It's not a good start. It's really
No.
not good. And so Braylon, then she like Wit leaves. Braylon appears and he's like, "What are you doing here?" And then the mayor comes by and wants to talk to Braylon about her speech. And he's like, "Can we have 10 minutes? Like, I need to talk to Denzel." And she's like,
He's
"Okay,
like, you've got seven. I've got
right."
other things to do.
Like, I have another appointment, right? I'm the friggin' mayor. So they walk over under like a tree. And Bray gives him this look like, okay, you know. And so Denz is like, I had a plan. I was gonna dress up as your favorite, like well, who is romance to you, like Captain America. But of course they didn't have the costume, so I end up with Iron Man. I made the
Well, and it's
sandwich.
like he sent that what's his face, Julian, to get it, and he got the wrong one because he had a mood board and a dream and not anyway, that's fine.
And so he's like, I made the sandwich, which is now in the mud. I finally did the flip after like 4 times. And of course, I think that's the thing that touches him the most. Braylon's like, "You cooked for me?" And he's like, "Yes." And so, and then he kind of says, like, I tried hating everything that had changed about you because I loved you the second I saw you again and it pissed me off. Like, I was trying to fight it so hard and I just kept coming up with things to hate about the new you. Um, but he's like, I loved you then, I love you now, and all the times in between, basically. And
Yeah.
I am tired of trying to be somebody that I'm not. You're right about that. Like, I want to be plain old Dens, who you always loved, but I never really understood why. And that is the whole problem with this whole situation, you know? And then he's like, I quit my job. I'm at a freelance. And actually I have a meeting with your boss on Monday. Like that's who he apparently emailed when he decided on his plans. And Den starts crying and he says, you were right, I don't have a place here, only a world that my family built for me. Like, and it's not where I belong. And I
And
only ever made a home for myself with you.
he
And
says my home is you. Like it's not even like we had a home together. It was like
yeah,
you are the home that
you are
I
my home. I know you're scared of letting people in, but I want to be your home too, wherever that is. And so Braylon pulls out his phone and shows Denz an e-ticket on Delta to fly one way to LAX that he already had, a non-refundable ticket. And he's like, I was waiting till after the announcement, for CEO, just in case. I wanted you to come. I want you to come. And none of this was fake. Like, he owns up to all that. And then he says, will you come with me? And of course, we're in Denz's head this whole time. And Denz says, I never thought I would hear those 5 words again, like to get another chance to change, to do the right thing. And he says, yes. And they kiss.
He
And
doesn't even have to think about it. And
nope, not at
then the
all.
mayor's waiting, so chop chop.
Yes. So, and that's the end. And then we get the epilogue, which is 7 months later. Denz is FaceTiming with Jordan, and he's finally getting the secret ingredient to his mom's sweet potato pie, which turns out is the anticlimactic answer of lemon extract. And he's like, WTF? Like, do you know how many things I tried to make this pie and it's friggin' lemon extract? Like, are you joking? And so they're talking, and he can tell from the couch in the background that he's at Denz's old apartment, which is where Jamie lives. And so he says, hey, Jordan, tell Jamie he owes me a text and please don't fuck in my old bed. And Jordan is like, hang up. And it's so funny. So clearly more is to happen with that situation. Um, and it's a really funny moment. And so they're talking about they're taking a trip back to Atlanta for the holidays in like a month, and everybody's really excited about it.
Yeah. They've
Um,
got their ugly sweaters and I think Den's says muffin
Oh, it's a
and
apron. They have matching aprons. They're like in the
oh yeah,
kitchen cooking, and his sister got them aprons. And yeah, one says muffin and one says sweet
sweet tea.
tea or something. Yeah, it's so cute. And this harkens back to one of the flashbacks where Denz was talking about like he pictured their future, before Braylon announced he was like going to London, like, and that matching aprons in the kitchen was like one of the things that he like pictured. So it was really cute. And so that basically says Braylon was there for 3 months on his own first and found an apartment, and they figured out the whole long distance thing, FaceTiming and all that.
He
And-
was like, I don't know why we didn't think to do this the
right.
first
Well,
time.
he's like, maybe we were too young and immature. Like, it might not have worked then. Like, who knows? But like, it definitely worked now. We figured it out. And they made it. And Denz is loving his new job. He's a consultant, basically, doing freelance work with companies like Braylon's foundation to help them with their social media and stuff like that. And uh, and he really like what he's doing now is perfect for him. He loves it, and so he loves their life here. They put the pie in the oven. Braylon gives him a look like he wants to say something, and Denz wants to like beat him to it. So, but Denz says, "I love you," right as Bray is starting to say something sexual, and he's like, "Oh, I mean, I love you too." It's so funny. And then he's like, "No, but seriously, I really do love you." And like they start making out, and Braylon's like, "We're gonna burn the pie," and Denz is like, "I don't care." And then the group chat pings, and Braylon's like, "I swear to God, if you look at an email right now while we're kissing, like I'm gonna kill you, right?" And Denz is like, "It's not an email, it's the family group chat." And he's like, "Oh God, are they, complaining about my XYZ whatever thing?" And he's like, "Oh my God, how long have you been holding on to that?" Right? Like, he's like, "No, everyone is so excited about your trip. Everybody's talking about what you're gonna do with them when we get there." And he turns to Braylon and he says, "No, you have nothing to worry about. I think they love you." And
Oh, yeah.
so cute. So, everybody, read this book. It was so fun. We
It
loved
was
everything
fun.
about it. It made me cry, which, as everybody knows, is a plus in my book. So, um,
And like not Megan is not about the angst, but a book that pulls on the heartstrings, and it
yes,
did that. Like
absolutely. Like
it's really
fully
sweet.
emotion. Yes. So, we hope everybody loved it. And next week we will talk to Julian Winters, and we'll see you then.
Yeah, I'll see you then.